Over the next, we will see Pavel Dunaev from Moscow with his presentation. It will be devoted to the special projects and working with them. The presentation is recorded. We'll be watching and listening to what Pavel gave to us. Right after presentation, we will have the opportunity to watch Pavel and to see him live and to talk to him live in.
Hello, dear colleagues. Today I offer you to talk about working on large projects. To start with, a couple of words about myself. For many years, I've been working in the sphere of translations, for mostly written translations. About 20 to 12 years, I've been working as a freelancer. And after that, I've been working for 5 years in a translation company, and for the last 2 years, I've been busy with a very large project from the customer's point of view. That lets me hope that my experience is diverse enough and could be useful to some of you. To start with, let's define our objective. We get it together too. I would like to talk about big projects first of all from the point of view of the freelancer. Though during our meeting we will have to talk about how the project looks from the customer's point of view, and I should say that I don't much differentiate the final customer and the translation bureau. I think that the full understanding of what is happening is useful for any freelancer, and it lets them to evaluate the situation more adequately and to make decisions and to act in such a way so that would be useful for them. The brief content of the report you will see on the slide. As usual, when we talk about translation, this is just a concentrated sense which comes to some simple things which are evident for everybody at once or eventually. The thing is that large projects require cooperation, and such cooperation should be broad, multi-sided, and diverse. Often it is between the large quantity of people. From the point of view of the translation company, a large project is a lottery. Not even to say a lottery, but Russian roulette. Either you win or lose. I think the freelancer may only benefit, and what size of the benefit is, it depends on the freelancers themselves, on their strategy, and of course on their own wishes and desires. Those people who met me know that my favorite topic is practical translation. Practical or commercial translation is the translation discussed as an activity with the aim of getting an award. Due to the reason that any work, no matter whether it is private translator or a translation bureau, any private work relates to the sphere of service, the first stage And one of the most important stages is getting the order. But getting the order doesn't mean that you sold your product. Though in the professional sphere the term selling the translation is often used, but none of us has the stock of ready-made translations to be sold to a certain customer. We get the order and we promise something in exchange of the promise of the customer, and this promise needs to be fulfilled. With this or those difficulties, the job should be paid for, and the next order should come, because the freedom of a freelancer, like the freedom of a translation bureau, remains the freedom until they have a choice of orders. Unfortunately, this is not the situation in every case, but luckily the next order comes in the majority of cases. And then we will talk about how this cycle looks through the prism of a big project. Let's begin with the definition of a large project. What is the large project itself? If we had the possibility to communicate in reality, I would ask anybody to speak on that topic. I'm sure I would received different answers, but they would come to two basic criteria. A large project is the project which can be long-lasting. For me, this interval is 1 month, because I adhere to the point of view that the bills should be paid within 1 month. And as soon as we come to the situation when the translation is done by one person, the so-called artist or creator, the group of persons, then we can talk about the appearance of the circumstances. I would like to talk further. Where do this project come? First of all, as a rule, large project has a volume of documentation. The brightest example is construction of some plant, or working on some geological spot, or building a ship, or whatever. There are lots of examples, and every of you has your own examples. The construction process is accompanied both with the buying of the equipment or some improvement. In general, the movement is going on as planned. The moment of big material project, and this way is ideal for planning and realization. Another way is to develop documentation during the project itself. Anyway, we have the final customer and the large volume of the documents to be translated. Apart the large project on written translation, there are large orders on oral translation, but they stand somehow specifically due to the reason that to realize all translation project, the presence of translator is needed. I love written translation because they allow to work on a distance. we as the representatives of our industry are glad to know about the contracts on improvement of equipment, buying equipment or construction of something, because in many cases it results in the increase of orders. I remember the year 2003 when practically every translation company of Moscow became overwhelmed with orders on translating documentation about geological spots. And it came to the fact when I was a freelancer and I received similar documents from 2 or 3 companies. More often the situation is like that when 1 or 2 or 3 companies is engaged in realizing this or that project, and the customer, if the customer builds the process himself on written translation, anyway this process is implemented due to some general ideas. First of all, we have negotiations. Negotiations may be difficult and stressed with the selection of participants, with the principles to be agreed upon and requirements to be agreed upon. They might be quite short when the requirements are clear between the group of translators and the translators bureau. Then comes preparation to the project, and again it depends on such a parameter which is called the degree of maturity of the customer. Someone may just send to the translation company a package of files containing thousands of pages, and somebody would, for example, want to make a glossary or agree upon something and make some steps which will increase the possibility of success. Anyway, negotiations and preparation take place beyond the attention of freelancer, and he or she is included into work at the stage of team building. Team is a kind of beautiful word, but it's justified when there is a real differentiation of responsibilities. Sometimes the team is not formed, but as we have mentioned several minutes ago, in any case we will need more than 1 person. That's why I don't think that translation of books is not a big project, because doesn't matter how much time it takes. This is the task for 1 person. And this world is not familiar to me, because it has the predetermined quality criteria. Then the team is built, then the work is done and is completed. By the way, I will mention it further, but it's always necessary to mention that every project, even the most long-lasting one, has its end, and it's worth remembering about it and thinking what would be after it finishes. Okay, let's speak a little bit about the point of view of a translation company. Obtaining the order is the most difficult in the beginning. What does it mean? Big projects are projects in which costs will be sufficient and substantial even from the point of view of large companies which have large budgets for customers. And it's a rare thing when The selection of the supplier of the big order takes place without any tender. The word tender is used and has been used negatively within our conference, I'm sure, but believe me, if it is negative, it cannot be avoided, and it is worth remembering the most important thing, that every tender implies some sort of winner. There might be 1 or 2 rounds of application and answering questions and visits to the office of the company, and so on and so forth. It's quite exhausting process, believe me. I came across it. And let me repeat, it results in making a contract, but it doesn't end with it. It is not ended with it, because routine work begins after that. And if initially making a contract and concluding an agreement to the large project is the long-lasting process, but the next orders are more or less automatically and they came to the sales department, and you shouldn't think about them. Nevertheless, the work is the most complex in the middle of it. Why so? Because on the wave of joy and euphoria from getting the large contract, managers, translators, and editors begin to translate and organize the process and send the documents to the customers. It's quite easy for them in the beginning, but when they begin getting the first feedback from the customer, this joy is replaced with disappointment, because it turns out that the customer expected something else or forgot to tell about something. And it's a rare thing when the first package of documents is handed in at once and without any modifications and improvements. When it is necessary to organize the work on translating the next packages on remaking the previous ones, it's quite an unpleasant thing. One more peculiarity to be told frankly about is that the freelance interpreter and the translation bureau often thinks its work ideal and doesn't take any comments of the customer seriously. And it's quite unpleasant for them, because they did their job with their spirit. But as soon as the middle of the project is over, towards the end of the project, everything is agreed upon and glossaries compiled, and the finalization of the project is much simpler. That's why the most difficult part is the middle. And finally, the most important part is getting the payment. As a rule, it is quite a delicate issue, and it takes quite a long time. As per a large project, it might be 60 days since issuing the bill. The first money may come to the translation company after 2 or 3 months after they had published the first order. To make matters worse, sometimes this affair proves to be risky. I know one case when a very successful and respected company of translation has concluded a large agreement for translation and made everything in the beginning in a very energetic and correct way. It could translate a very large volume within 2 or 3 weeks of the contract. It had freelancers, interpreters as partners. After that, this company knew that the customer had changed his opinion, and the situation was worse, and they refused to continue the project, and they refused to pay for the job which had been done. I repeat, that is one of the case, and this case actually made the almost made the company bankrupt. The most the most negative thing about it, that the company lost its reputation due to the lack of money it should have got from the customer. You should always take such things into consideration, and it's quite common advice to the people to be very particular about concluding agreement, about making bills, about issuing bills and paying something. It's a rare thing when some translation company has some stock of money which would allow it to cover all losses in case any discrepancies in terms of payment arise. Unfortunately, the nature of translation as a service is that the customer doesn't take any risk, and it just gives the text to one company or another. It's necessary to make decisions in very very responsible way. Next is the point of view of the freelancer. I would advise to stick to the standard negotiation process. The colleagues will share off stage of the situation when the representative of the translation company addresses the freelancer and offers him to reduce his or her payment rate. And if we speak about large project, and he mentions that this project will be continued, but the reality is that the project might not be continued, and the translator has a limited scale of resources. That's why I would advise you to adhere to your standard practice of rules. That will not distract you from the project, but it will let you be sure that you begin working on the terms which suit you. During the process of work, there is less independent research. What I mean, it's not a secret that before typing or dictating the text of translation, you have to do some preparatory work to collect some background data or contexts or whatever. If the project is organized in a good way, then you will receive any reference information and initial or full complete glossary at the beginning of your work, and it will let you to save your time and effort. On the other hand, there should be more negotiations. Why? Because other translators work at the same time as you. And it's very desirable that your personal your personal translation solutions could be agreed with the work of those translators. The project manager or the leading editor might not know about some peculiarities or think them as going without saying. But when for example, 9 translators send their translations compliant with the requirements, you may turn to be the one whose translation might not comply with the requirements. So please look at the text and try to suggest what might have been translated already. The simplest example is geographical names or trademarks, or the names of the companies or positions. Don't hesitate to specify these issues. Let me repeat that other interpreters and translators work together with you, and it's possible that even your own issue will make the customer think and answer to all translators or warn them that this or that position should be translated in this or that way, and specify everything, specify any standard names or titles. As far as payment is concerned, I've told you about the rates. I want to tell you that in the large project, the rates are quite average. I cannot say that they are very high, but it's up to you to make the decision whether to participate or not, and to assess what volume of income you want to get. When I was a freelancer, the rates were not that high, but due to the monthly load I had from 200 till 300 pages, I felt quite good, because these pages were connected with one well-known project and I knew the terminology, and it was easy and comfortable to work on it. That is why, as soon as you have realized that the project is large and you achieved a certain level of productivity, you should make a decision whether to participate in it or not, on the basis of not the rate per page, or not rate per page. I wouldn't advise to anybody, on the other hand, to devote himself fully to one project. We've told about the risks of a translation company, but as freelancers, you should remember that every project will end, and this end always proves unexpected and very sharp. And if you didn't maintain any connections with any other of your customer, it might be very painful to you, because the activity is the source of money for the freelancer, and it's optimal to have 3 or 4 constant clients, and you should maintain good contacts with them, because if you lose even one of them, it will result in a loss of about a quarter of income. So it's up to you to decide and weigh every circumstances. Try not to put all eggs into one basket. Nevertheless, you made a decision to accept the invitation to participate in a large project, and they were at the stage of mobilization. It's quite a peaceful word. It's a situation when you might have been included into some database, and suddenly you receive a call or a letter, and you are offered to take a considerable volume, or you saw that the translation company has just advertised. Mobilization is quite a normal process when every sane vendor manager wants to employ people and a little bit extra margin. because he knows that not all people will agree to work, and among those who will agree, there will be a selection according to some criteria which are indicated on the slide. First of all, manager will select. So you replied, you agreed or not, and the manager decides, the manager solves his or her own project. It's much more pleasant for him to deal with the people who are in contact and who are available and who agree to take a certain volume by a certain term, or they say that they would be available in 3 days. It's much more pleasant to deal with such kind of people than with those who are hesitating. Manager takes decisions, makes decisions very quickly, and he won't lose his time. If you are a specialist and you refuse from the project, and he will go then to your colleague. So manager accepted your advertisement, and after that the job goes to the editor. The editor, as a result, gives only 2 types of recommendations. The first is, I will agree to read his translation. The second is, I won't read these translations ever. And it's worth to read any requirements before doing any job to be good in translating. The final stage is the customer. It's quite a rare thing when you have translated the documents and gave it to the customer, and he writes that this document has been translated very well. Mind that it depends on the character of the original text. But if you work with a translation bureau and the customer said he liked this or that documents and
asked to underline this or that translator, and in case when the customer was not satisfied with the job, then we underline those translators. And finally, this division can last for a long time, and then in the end this group can be divided. What career can a freelancer achieve? First of all, that's the change of overload. He can receive the offer to work for companies for fixed payment, or can receive some new customers, and it is always pleasant to receive the job offers. Also, the role can be changed, because the translator can be asked to do some proofreading work, so editor's tasks, and some of you will like that, and some of translators does not like that, because some depends on the job, because very often we receive bad translations than good translations, and it is quite often happens when the translation when the editor reads the work and it is just awful. And what about the raising of rates? This is the common human desire to raise their rates, and so the translator had to make a decision to raise it. My advice is to do it softly and highly desired to do that, not in the moment when manager offers you another job, but when you already passed the task and made it good, and you achieved all the requirements, and then you just say that you have lots of tasks and other tasks, and you have to decide between you have to show that you appreciate yourself, and still you have to give the time to a manager to overthink that those requirements. And this is the situation of a trading when the prices are changing. And believe me, please, no one, everybody hates blackmail, and very often you can, if managers are able to find the replacement, they think, well, why not? There are lots of young specialists, and they can. But still, sometimes managers are ready to overlook the conditions, and that does not mean that you will receive the same amount of tasks, maybe. But as a rule, in large projects, there is a differentiation. But then you have to be prepared for receiving the difficult tasks and difficult texts. So the editors will be able to check it more in more detailed way. And finally, let's watch the situation when you are sick and tired of translating, for example, some technical field, and you have found something else, something new, something with better conditions. I would like to wish you, both to managers and to translators, some success. I would advise you to never overestimate yourself. Respect yourself, respect your colleagues, and if after your work you decided, because of these or those reasons, different reasons, you decided to refuse or to refuse to doing this job, then please, or maybe you have decided to do something else in your life, or maybe you received or found new customers, and you do not see yourself further cooperating with your client. This part is always clear, not always pleasant, but still you have to make a decision, and it is very important to keep your acquaintances, because lots of things can happen with the new, lots of issues can emerge with the new customers, and in the end, I hope I described everything I wanted, and in the end, you have things to decide, and to make a decision only you are able to do. Thanks very much. And now we will try to ask questions, live questions to Pavel. Pavel, can you hear us? I can see you. I have seen your presentation. You were great. I see it is hot in there. That's great. That's hot discussions on hot topics. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, any powers to talk, I am ready to answer them. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Pavel? Yeah. I can hear you. I am taking part in one large project, and I have a question. When you mentioned the coordination with translators, the sequence of if I see the lacks in the job of the manager project, can I can I ask myself, or can I do this project myself, or can I ask in more delicate way? Pavel, are you here? Pavel, can you hear us? Let's try to renew the connection. Pavel, can you hear us? No connection. Unfortunately, no connection. Is it okay now? Okay. Pavel, did you hear the question, or I have to reply it? To repeat it once more? Your task and your aim from one point of view to make your job easier, for you did not have to do it once more, and from the other side you need to avoid taking the job which you will you have to give a hint in a delicate way that it will be easier in the future, and it would be easier for everyone, for editors, and you have to give the example. And if if the client will agree and say that he can change maybe rates or payment conditions, like per hour, payment per hour, then you can offer your ideas, your own ideas, and say that this that will be cost you this or that amount of money. But if you do once for free, then the next time for free, and then you refuse, you can find yourself in a blacklist. Are there any questions?
Can you hear me well? Yes. Hello, Pavel. We need to find some reserved channel. Sergey's talking about the fact that there might be some problems on the side of the Pavel. We should take this into account in the future. Pavel, hello? Can you hear us? I see. I hear. I want to thank you for your report. Everything was excellent and very detailed. I don't know even how an ordinary person can achieve such a degree of realizing his own thoughts and actions. I think your report is very valuable for the beginners, for those translators who just begin their careers. Some people who present there have been engaged in the translation industry for 10 years, but this report is invaluable for those people who are students, and we are going to download your presentations on the net. I'm sure that it will be valuable. Pavel, are you with us? We'll listen him. Perhaps he doesn't hear us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for everyone present at the reports of our sections. Thank you very much for online users. I think Pavel listens to us online. So Pavel, thank you very much on our behalf, and I think next time we all be together and we will have more possibilities to eliminate barriers of communication which exist between us at the given moment. Thank you to everybody. Great. Well done.